Welcome, baby. The NPC presents Smooth Finish with our hosts Rob Romano, Chris Marcano, and Brent Lane. These guys have more chemistry than your entire test kit. Ever enlightening and striving to be entertaining. So let's dive into their latest episode of the NPC's Smooth Finish.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Smooth Finish. Today, we're going to talk about private equity in the industry, something that's really come into the industry heavy as a result of the explosion of business we all had with COVID and people seeing those dollar signs. So we're going to kind of explore, from the plateau, from the start of it with the distributors and manufacturers and how that went. And we actually have the pleasure of having Kyle Chaikin with us today, who actually just went through this process with himself and some other builders, and we're looking forward to talking to him. Chris and Rob, how we doing?
Fantastic. Yep, it's Monday, and I'm feeling good. I'm feeling energized. I had a dry weekend. Don't ask me why, but I feel good.
Oh, I think I remember a text or two that might debunk that. What about you, Robbie?
Yeah, definitely not a dry weekend, but a pleasant weekend all around. It is Monday. It was a dry Monday till now, and so far so good. Just glad to have made it through the 4th of July rush and smooth sailing from here on out.
Yeah, and we've got a great topic today, and I think it's perfect timing too, because our guest today is Kyle Chaikin, who is the visionary founder and CEO of the Chaikin Ultimate Pool Group, a leader in pool construction and maintenance with over 2 decades of experience. And I'm just making this up, by the way. I'm not reading this.
Way more.
Kyle is renowned for his expertise, innovation, and commitment to excellence. And Kyle, I believe you founded the company back in 2004, didn't you?
1985, but excellent.
Well, look at you going. So decades of experience in our guest seat today, for sure. But the topic of discussion, and Kyle's at the tip of the spear of this, as we'll kind of get to, is the emergence of private equity within the pool and spa industry. And we've all been around long enough to go back to, the quote unquote before time. So let's just use COVID as a kind of a stamp mark here, from a timeline. But there was essentially forever no private equity. This was uncharted waters for outside investment for the most part, for forever. And then all of a sudden, it seems like we became, as an industry, the belle of the ball when it comes to private equity. So here we are today. It's here. We have all seen the acquisitions from the Heritage Group and their private equity. My former company, was acquired by a private equity backed organization. You look around, you read a headline, it's what's happening in the industry. And Kyle is here to kind of tell us not only about his journey with his incredibly successful organization, but the recent announcement that's just kind of made the news circuit, the papers, if you will, that he is part of a group and really spearheaded a group that has agreed to transition to some outside investors. And so that's transitioning us too. So first of all, congratulations, Kyle. It's amazing for you and your teams and your partners in this. So well done. So before we get really into that, Kyle, why don't you tell us just a little bit? Let's go back, right? Let's go back and you tell us, if you can, a little bit about your background and how did you get started in the pool industry?
Well, that was like many others. It was purely accidental. Got a nice high school job and got cleaning pools and running around with no shirt on and flip-flops. And it was kind of a cool way to earn a living in the summers. And when we were those days training for playing football and any other sport you might have been involved in. So it was a great job because not only did we get to go out and clean pools, but digging trenches was actually fun when you were in high school. It was thought of as a workout, not work. So back in those days, I got dragged into it by a good friend's older brother who was running crews for a company here on Long Island. So my buddy and I jumped in, and we were the next level as juniors in high school, and by the end of my senior year, the person I was working for, like many others in this industry, decided to jump out of town with people's money. So towards the end of the year, I went ahead and picked up all the maintenance accounts because that's kind of what I knew. I didn't really know anything else other than trenching. And as that turned out, it worked out for 4 years through college. I just built a little maintenance company and I thought that was it. I graduated college and, went to work for my dad like every good Jewish boy is supposed to do. And I went into the garment center for about a minute and a half before I realized I really enjoyed being outdoors and meeting people. And so I went back to doing that. And I started at the time, Chaikin Pools Incorporated. And that was in 1991 when I actually incorporated and became a real company and thought, maybe I should do something more than clean pools. So I got involved a little bit with opening and closing and filter installs and the like. But it wasn't until I found the association world and education that I was actually able to be proud of what I did for a living. Every time I told anybody what I did for a living, I said, well, I'm, doing some pools these days, but we'll figure it out. And, fast forward a few years, I got into the association and started getting involved with education. And I guess it was about 10 years later, I built my first commercial pool. And as they say, the rest is history. And, how I've come across Rob and you and Brent and everybody in these circles we run in, I can attribute it mostly to the association world, right? Where you get involved and get really heavy into the education, heavy into helping others and giving back to the industry. And my network of friends is really what I got most out of this industry.
It's funny. You're telling that story, and all I could when you talked about initially how you got involved, I'm just hearing the line from Caddyshack of "The world needs ditch diggers too, Danny."
Yep, sure does.
Look at you now.
And by the way, that's what we're doing. I'm telling you, we're putting them out into the vocational schools. We're trying to get classes in there because it's true. That's a great line. And at the time, it might have been meant as a put down, but now I'll bet dime to dollar the kids that are going to college, and not the ones that are set up completely, but ones that are just getting a degree and trying to go out for a job are not doing nearly as well as those getting into the pool industry these days.
No, I mean, and it's a great phenomenon that's occurring too. This is a great topic for another discussion, actually, but just the shift for, professional career path is changing so rapidly now. And it used to be like, if you didn't go to college, you'd never be an upstanding, successful person. And that's just not true anymore. Right. I mean, it's proven time and time again. And there's so many opportunities for the trades and vocational positions, and there's so much demand for it as well. So great topic for another day for sure. But, one of the things that I think that I've always, known about your company, Kyle, and kind of your reputation is that you're known not only for innovative designs and state-of-the-art technology, right? And let's kind of hover on that one, but also it was a work ethic, right? And I think that we've kind of all been friends and professionally and personally over the last, forever. I mean, in some instances with you and Robbie, have known each other forever, but I think we have that in common too, when it's time to roll up the sleeves and get something done. And I think that's indicative too of the entire pool industry for the people who are kind of have it in their blood, right? That have the chlorine in their bloodlines. But, so you've got the work ethic, you started off playing in the dirt, you grew it from there. But one of the things, again, Chaikin Ultimate Pool Group is known for innovative designs and really that state-of-the-art technology. Do you attribute a lot of that to the different opportunities from different organizations for education and cross-pollination with other builders, other service companies? You're kind of known as a connector of dealers and people in the industry from coast to coast, north to south, east to west. I mean, did you get from those relationships and that effort you put in kind of externally that to bring back into your organization with your people?
Well, every bit of it, Chris. I mean, the only way that I know to build a business is through networking. And through networking, I mean, when I become friendly with someone and we get to know each other and we start sharing how we're going about building or even just running a business, all these things, as long as you're paying attention, you're able to learn. And quite often it would be somebody just showing a picture of something new they had done, or maybe we're showing somebody a way in which we went about building a certain pool, which opened their eyes to the ability to now do a pool in that way. And it's been mutual right across the board with most everybody I know in the industry. All the folks that are volunteers are willing to share their expertise and their knowledge. And that's what has helped me to grow. And I'll tell you what, I've helped a lot of people across Long Island and the tri-state. My phone rings every day with somebody who took a class that I was teaching, or perhaps just knows me through the industry, and they have questions. And I don't always know the answer, but I certainly know the person that knows the answer.
Sure.
And that's something that we've done quite often, is help other companies. As long as they're willing to do the right thing, we're willing to help. And I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that my partner, Ed Cohen, is in the same regard. He's a teacher, he's an educator, he's a mentor, and he's never once held back helping another company, as long as we know they're trying to do the right thing, right? We all know there's a few out there that might be heading in the wrong direction. We'll do our best to help them change direction. But if they're still unwilling to, then we would move on. But as long as you've been paying attention, taking education, putting in the time, have the insurance, have the license, all the good stuff,
sure,
I'm more than happy to help out.
No, that's great. That's great. So I think we've got a pretty good feel of who you are, where you came from, which brings us up to kind of the point of the topic of today is your experience in dealing with what you just went through and the different caveats of that. So, and then that leads to the bigger conversation, of course, of the phenomenon of our industry being so, unique and so profitable, and there's so much opportunity and potential. I mean, that's why private equity is here, right? I mean, they see opportunity, right? And that's just really what it's all about. So having said that, can you share some factors that kind of led up to you considering selling Chaikin Ultimate Pool Group to a firm?
So it started, believe it or not, Chris, more than 20 years ago.
Wow.
I had a short stint on Wall Street back in like 93. All these IPOs were taking place, and people were just making money. And back then, we had a thought. There were a few of my friends and I, we would sit around and chat, and we would talk about if we all kind of went under the same umbrella, and if we had one back office, think of the efficiencies, and then we could build this massive business that, might be worthy of an IPO one day. But we never were able to put the plan into action because we didn't see the path forward after an IPO with a board of directors that we would have no control over. And we figured that was really just a one-time hit, just get some money and run away. So we kind of faded off and away from that. But then, as you pointed out, 5-7 years ago, whenever it really started with what was being called roll-ups at the time,
right?
And mostly just service. And we'll give credit to Riverbend Sandler down there in Texas with Concentric Equity, because they were the first to jump in construction and do a roll-up of sorts. And at that time, Bruce Fisher, who of Hayward fame back in the day, had been mentoring a few of my friends and your friends, the people that you know. And I ended up at a lunch with Bruce and another good friend. And we had a long talk about how to set yourself up for what's coming. And what did we mean by that? Well, what's coming is roll-ups. What's coming is massive franchises. What's coming is, big corporate people in our own industry that, we see now is one thing. Who knows what they'll become in the near future?
And how long ago was this, Kyle?
2 years.
Okay.
2 years ago. And what I was looking for was protection for my company, right? Was protection for all the people that work here, including myself. Because what we didn't want to have happen, we have this great brand, we have a great name with a great client base, and we're very comfortable and secure in who our customers are. That being said, when roll-ups start happening and tons of money is being thrown into marketing and employee development, which might also mean going out and without meaning to poach, but poaching employees, at that point, because you're putting out so many ads and so much money into it, and a big structure for an employee to go into and have an actual career path that a lot of people in the pool industry don't provide. We try to provide that already, but on a different scale than what I think can be provided by some of these bigger corporations with a lot more money behind them. So at that moment, right after lunch, that plan, I would tell you, went into action. And Bruce helped with bringing some of the groups together. I was able to reach out to a couple of very good friends that I thought of with extremely high regard. And the people that ended up in this group are those people, right? And Gorland Pools and Cool Pool, both have really connected through Bruce. And of course, I've known them through association world and very good friends over the years. But then when we had Bruce and we went through this process with one firm, at first, a firm that Bruce had been connected to through the Latham deal that he had ended up involved in. And that firm came through and they spent an awful lot of money vetting a CEO. They vetted that CEO, spent a ton of money, came to the founding companies, and we all voted unanimously on this one CEO. And everything was moving ahead as planned, which was great. And then the deal fell apart. And it fell apart for a few reasons. And anybody who gets involved in this will know it's precarious right up until it's done, because
it's a lot of work.
There's a lot of time and paperwork and due diligence that goes into it. And at the end of the day, they decided that they were too big for what we were putting together. So the thing about that is we learned an awful lot. We learned over that 6-8 month period or whatever it was, all the workings and how private equity thought and worked. And we came back with a new plan. This time we had our vetted CEO and we had Bruce Fisher as what we referred to as an industry insider that was very highly regarded in private equity world because he has sat on the boards of many different private equity firms. And of course, even at Latham, I think he had a short stint as CEO when they had some issues and the private equity asked him to take over for a short run. So Bruce and our vetted, newly minted CEO that was unfortunately not getting paid because the deal fell apart, became our leadership team along with myself. And Isaac Kesselman at Aqua Doctor that I was dragged in. He was not at the time necessarily looking at this, but when we had a long discussion and the type of operator he is, I think he's among the top in the entire industry as far as efficiency and technology and just absolutely on top of everything. Let's face it, it's actually his wife, Maria, who's the real one behind it, but Isaac gets a lot of the credit for it. And then we move on and I was able to get Mike Todd on the phone from Rainbow Pools up in Hudson Valley. And again, another great operator who's built an incredible business to join forces with us and Cool Pool and Gorland Pools. And we were able to put together a 5 company team that presented now as a much larger entity. Now, everybody coming in had to realize one thing. We weren't actually one entity. So that became problematic to some firms. I should say to all firms. Everybody looked at that and said, hey, that's never been done before. And we said, well, it's about time it happens, right? So we were looking for a little bit of leverage and size to come in rather than them going out looking for a $30 million company. Well, we put one together, right? I don't know the exact numbers, 10, 20, 30, probably closer to 40, a little more maybe, but whatever it was at the time, we presented as one company and it was going to be one deal for all of us. At the end of the day, we all signed our own individual deals, but we were treated as one. We interviewed upwards of 17 private equity firms. And I know that's interesting and funny to say, right? Because private equity firms usually come to you and interview you. But we had put together a team that was a deal team. And we were very strong in our beliefs and our opinions that what we were putting together, which is going to be a platform that engulfs everything we do here in the Northeast. Service, maintenance, construction, remodel, part of construction. Some people
Right.
say yes, some people say no. But we have a business model that works. We were able to prove that our EBITDA, in no uncertain terms, is among the best in the industry. And when we started showing PE, who all at first they all, no, we just want service routes. That's all we want. You know, we just want to go clean pools. We just want to go open and close them. And again, I'm sure that works, right? It's probably very lucrative. But what we're doing, as is evidenced by everybody you know here in the Northeast, is taking our individual business models, putting them together on one big platform. And now we have each other's strengths, right? Whereas Isaac, I'll use him as an example, at Aquadoctor, he didn't do commercial work. He's already taking on commercial renovations and leak detection and things because he's now comfortable because we're his partner. Matter of fact, I'm wearing a shirt today, Aquadoctor.
I was going to make a comment on that.
Yep. And Mike Todd and I, we were already talking about, again, a job he might not have even bid on, but up in Hudson Valley, there's a couple of big commercial projects, and Mike's friends with the developer or the project manager, whatever it may be. So we're going to do the takeoffs with them, and as partners, we're going to get it figured out. And we may or may not get it, but these are the things that we're providing to each other. And we're not stopping here, obviously. We're going to grow organically, but we're also going to do acquisitions. And my job at the overall company, which has no real name yet, but we're referring to it as Total Pool Care Network, but it will be changed shortly and have a real name to it, is going to be business development. And I'm already talking to at least a dozen different guys and gals that have shown interest and are wanting to perhaps be a part of something bigger where they can now not only provide themselves some financial security in a liquidity event, but be a part of something growing and going forward. And if they can do that and they can provide that to all their employees, as we talked about earlier, a career path and just the benefits of being with a larger group, then that's awesome, because every one of us, every founder in this group, there was a few common denominators, but one in particular that just stood out to me. Every one of us, no matter how large, we operate as a family business, right? We're just a mom and pop. We take care of our people. They're family to us. Nobody who works here is anything but family, right? And that's how we operate, right. And we treat them as such. So we're not looking to have some crazy group come in here and take over everything we do and change everything we do. We are expecting some change, of course, right? That's why we're doing it. We want to be more efficient. We want to be better. But it was very important to us that the people are what mattered the most. And to the point before of interviewing 17 different PE firms, O2, who's the group we partnered with, it wasn't even a question. They rose to the top. We had narrowed it down to 4. We did our homework and our research on each and every one. And at the end of the day, after interviewing companies that had been taken over or acquired by this particular private equity group, the only question I ever asked in the interviews was, are they who they say they are, right? Do they do what they say and follow up? Are they the gentlemen and the women that they claim to be? And to a person that they've acquired, absolutely unequivocally, the answer is yes. All the people we talked to are still involved in operating their businesses. None of them have had wholesale changes where they had to fire this person or everybody was miserable because it was too much of a corporate attitude. So in large part due to those interviews, they ran away with the vote. And
I want to dig into that a little bit, Kyle. And by the way, I have my notes right here, and I asked that original leading question, and you literally went line by line and answered the next 6 questions with that answer.
That's a little scary, Chris. That scares me because now I think like you, which is really scary.
Well, it all makes sense. But I want to go back to that because I think this is invaluable, and I thought this was fascinating when we talked, a little bit earlier about this offline. But the fact that you maintain control And that's not a phenomenon. I think that's just a way you have to look at this when you're considering an event like that you just managed, but you are in control, right? It's not like one firm comes in and is just like, we're going to take you over no matter what, right? Like I want, if we can, kind of share your experience with that, where you maintain control with this newly formed group, a relatively newly formed group. And for the record, 4 of the 5 of those amazing businesses are NPC members. I just want to stress that there. That's a fact. And
including Kyle.
Yep.
Yeah,
NPC
right.
winners know how to win, baby. So, but yeah, I kind of, if you kind of enlighten us about not only just the process of it, but your kind of philosophy and the motivation and resolve that you had going in and sitting down with people that are worth multiple billions of dollars, right? These equity firms are so big that can be so intimidating. But again, you're the valuable asset, right? You are what they want. So can you kind of walk us through that?
So, Chris, that was part of the reasoning of the group doing it together was to become that valuable asset, right?
Sure.
As a group, we had more leverage than we would if we individually were going after it. We also were providing the concept of this platform with a vetted CEO, which was helpful. We had Bruce, who was also a part of other major deals in the industry. So he was able to speak to some of the nuance in the profitability and the seasonality and all that good stuff. But to your question, not all private equity is created equal. There are a lot of roll-ups out there that will be an absolute horror story. I have a very good friend who sold his company, not in the pool industry, but to private equity in the home improvement industry. A hugely successful company. And within 2 years, it's a shell of what it was. They've changed the entire personality of the corporation, and the branding is absolutely unequivocally a tenth of what it used to be. And that person who sold it is fighting with them, and they're back and forth about, it's all things money, right? We, of course, there's deals going forward, right? Everybody that's in PE, there's a deal where you're signing an employment agreement, or some people aren't and leaving, right? But those that are staying and not maintaining control per se, because you do not own your own company. That being said, the private equity guys know one thing. The ones that we chose, they know one thing. They understand finance. They understand money. What they don't know how to do is run a pool business.
Sure.
Even our CEO, he does not know how to run a pool business. He's counting on us, the owners and founders and managers that are already pre-existing, to guide him through the process. They're where they jump in and help all the time. They'll help us to vet out the proper technology platform. They'll help us to vet out insurance on a larger scale that we can get better deals on. Everything they do will be around the efficiency of money, and how you operate your business day to day is, for us currently, not changed one bit. I'll be honest with you, I can't wait to change a little bit, because I think that we can use more efficiency. I think we can use more KPIs and things that we can track that, by growing over the years, became harder and harder for us to stay up with.
Right.
And again, that's the beauty of the different personalities in the game, because that's not something Isaac needs. He's got it all in place already. It's not something Mike Todd needs. He's got it. But I need that. What they need is my help, maybe getting the bigger, higher dollar commercial jobs, or even in the backyards, the ones that people are afraid of are jobs that we take on, right? So when it comes to the partnership, everybody's bringing something to the table, and not the least of which is a company that's highly regarded. We're willing to talk to anybody, but we're certainly not going to be Ellis Island. We're not taking on everybody. We're only going to take on the people that fit the mold. And when I say fit the mold, we're looking for people that have a great name, that stand behind their product, that, quote unquote, I love to say, do the right thing. And it's so simple, right? I can't tell you how many times we get people that will give us a referral or a Google review. And I chuckle because all we did was what we told them we were going to do, right? We showed up on time. We actually made it to the meetings. We actually completed the job. And they tell us how great we are. And I'm like, well, thanks. That's awesome. But we kind of just did what we're supposed to do. So, to me, it's a simple thing. Evidently, it's not that simple to everybody. But those who do that are the people that we're interested in talking to.
Yeah, and just to for the record, the company is O2, correct? O2 Private Equity,
correct.
And
Dearborn,
and I know,
Michigan.
and that segues. That's great. What a detailed review of the whole process too, because it gives you some insights. And the takeaway for me is again how to manage this situation if it is presented to you, and how to set yourself up for what's next, right? Because and tell us, please, before we kind of get into to summarize all of this with the bigger picture of what we think the industry is going to look like with this new injection of private equity. But short term, middle range, is this going to be a transaction where, Kyle Chaikin just takes the money and runs? Because I don't think that's the guy I know. But what does that look like as we roll out short term and kind of midterm timelines?
So every founder not only did the deal, but reinvested in the bigger company. Every founder is interested in being part of building something that we could look back on and consider to be our legacy. And we're looking for companies to be part of that, right? We don't. It's not that we don't have an appetite for just people that want to come in and get a liquidity event and leave. That's okay. And we'll take on some of those as long as they're great companies that have, proven track record. But right now, what we're looking for other like-minded folks, right? And we're looking for people that, if they want to leave, that they have a management team that's been in place. So in the short term, not a lot changes other than, again, the platform becomes one company.
Sure.
We're always going to keep our own brands, right? Aquadoctor is going to be Aquadoctor. Chaikin Ultimate is going to be Chaikin Ultimate, Rainbow, Cool Pool, Gorlin, and whomever else comes on board. But we will have a name brand that's behind that, right? So at some point, my trucks may have another logo, Chaikin Ultimate Group by, and whatever the new company name is.
Sure. That's understandable.
And there's no question, Chris, that at different ages, there are different folks interested in a different amount of time, right? I'm in the middle. We have a couple of folks 10 years older, a couple of folks 5 or 7 years younger, that the younger ones might be looking, because you know how private equity is. I mean, and again, I should explain to the audience, private equity, there's different tiers, right? There's this tier that builds out a platform, creates a big value, turns it over to the next level, which means anybody in that deal hopefully cashes out and makes some money, more money than they had made in the first go round if possible, right? Then again, you decide, if you're in my position, whether or not you're staying on with that company or not. And for me personally, a lot of it will depend on who's that company. What's behind them, right? Because if they're just pure money people and want to change everything, it might be time for me to exit. If they're people, which I hope we would never sell to, if they're just like O2, just a bigger version and next level, I'd probably be glad to stay on another 3 to 5. So we'll see where it takes us. So there's no exact, for your question, there's no exact answer. It can go a multitude of ways. But I think that the concept and the theory for most of us, if not all of us in the deal, is to build this to a point where it's among the best, if among the top producers, revenue-wise and profit-wise, and certainly the best reputation in the industry. And our goal, again, is to make money, right? None of us are doing this for fun. We're all doing it to make a living and to make some money. And Chris, not a lot of people in our industry have an exit strategy.
Yep. Yeah. And that's something you hear time and time again, too. There's no contingency plan. You have folks that have worked for 20, 30, 40, 50 plus years, and their kids aren't interested. They don't have a young equity viable legacy solution that's out there. So something, an opportunity like you're talking about that you've created might be, and it will be a great example of kind of a next legacy chapter for a lot of folks out there. I mean, it's just an option, right? But it sounds like you are you're not stopping at this five-ish, there's not just five spokes on this wheel. It sounds like you're looking to add more hubs and to expand out. And I know the word network is a funny one in the private equity world. We talk about that, but it sounds like you're looking for more hubs.
And what little I can add or contribute to this conversation is that, my ear to the ground with some of my customers, and Chris, you hit it with the exit strategy. There are no heirs to take over their business. Their sons or daughters are not interested in continuing with the family business, and they're looking for a way out. And this type of venture does pique their interest because they built something. I mean, owning your own business is not, you have your family, but you're also married to your business, and you don't want to see that dissolve or go up in a puff and smoke. You don't want to just close the doors and that's it. If you can pass your legacy on to someone that's interested, especially like a private equity group, and it sounds like where the candidates that you're looking for are rather specialized, but they're out there, and hopefully you get to hear this podcast, and it could help you make that transition with a group like with Chaikin's group or O2.
Yeah, and
definitely.
I'm sorry, Brent. I didn't mean to come across. I'm willing, as the guy in charge of business development, I'm going to talk to everybody. That I will talk. I will do. I will talk to all. That does not mean that we're able to offer a deal to everybody. That does not mean we're even able to go to the next level. However, if people are interested in the concept, feel free. Reach out. You can find me through NESPA, PHTA. Heck, you guys give out my cell. I don't care.
Me and Kyle, me and Chris, you can contact us.
Right. It's
it looks like it's just it creates opportunity, and like you guys are saying, exit plan, and not listening from the other side, because being a importer and manufacturer and all that, and watching what's happened to our customer base, which is a little different, it's more distributor base and whatever. Never thought about it. So I'm sitting here listening to Kyle and thinking, man, plaster guys could, you get regions of these big, potentially big plasters that could come together for an equity group and become a bigger thing, a more efficient offer, whatever strategies and ways to do business, and it could be its own thing. And that never struck me as that way. I never, when you're talking about that type of service or contractors, but man, there's opportunity for all that. And as we all know, it's happening. So I'm sure it's in some people's minds of how to capture every aspect of the pool industry. And it's interesting. It could be something for our members.
Yeah. One thing I learned too, and I held on to this kind of, bit of expertise or this knowledge that I learned from my mentor, Bob Kohlberger, who started as the founder of Natural Chemistry. But we were approached all the time by bigger companies as we were growing over the 35 years that it's been around before it was sold. But he always said, and was emphatic about this, you always sit down and listen to somebody who's pitching you on acquisition, right? If they're because you will learn more about your company by getting that perspective. So even it's just an exercise of knowing your worth, seeing strengths, seeing weaknesses, or weaknesses. It was an invaluable exercise, and he was emphatic about that, and people would be like, there'd be rumors swirling. Oh, this company is going to buy your company, I heard. And I would talk to Bob about that, and he'd say, no, they approached us and we listened, but I always listen, right? I always listen. We're not for sale right now. I will tell you if it makes sense, but you listen and you learn. And I think just walking through what Kyle's gone through and hearing some of these details, I think that's a perfect example. I'm sure, Kyle, you probably can speak for hours about what you learned going through this process and dealing with all these folks. But ultimately, Brent, to your point too, it is just a perspective thing. Like, private equity happens in every single industry in every corner of the earth, right? If it's a modernized economy, it's going to happen. That's how it works. But the opportunity is there, I think, if it's done the right way, if you find a good partner to cross-pollinate, to leverage your efficiencies and literally get better. Like what one company is doing, one hub is doing over here, and you connect that hub with a few spokes, and all of a sudden you've got a couple of wheels turning in the right direction. it's like there's strength in numbers, and when something works, it works, right? And those kind of best practices, when they're cross-pollinated to other entities, it's a powerful thing when you really see it. And I've personally seen it dealing with my own experience with acquisition, right? So, you go in a little bit scared because of change, but all of a sudden it's like, holy man, I learned more in the last 5 years than I did the previous 20, and that's a fact. So it's all perspective. It really is.
So Chris, as we were talking about earlier with the partnership, Pool and Gorland Pools, along with Rainbow and Aqua Doctor and myself, we all are helping each other already. With Cool Pool, for instance, I know that Aqua Doctor received some leads via their website, and it fit perfectly with what Cool Pool is going to take that lead or those leads and run with it. One of them I know is a consulting job that is requiring not only design, but somebody to help with hydraulics and equipment choice and things like that. While Steve Gorland over at Gorland Pools has already benefited the entire company by starting to do renovation and remodel work, that whether it's Cool Pool or Aqua Doctor, or if it's Rainbow that might shoot over and help, or Chaikin Ultimate, you never know. But depending on the area and the type of renovation, Steve's now taking those on. And of course, we have the ability to send service work Steve's way. And with Cool Pool, they're doing an awful lot of construction these days. So they may be able to help fit in some additional renovation work and some new pools as well.
So Kyle, we've all seen it. Thank you again for sharing your experience with this. And we'll kind of sum it up by just talking about the future, right? We've seen private equity completely influence itself in distribution. Obviously, we're going through that. And there's been another turn. We all saw the heritage phenomenon, which is unbelievable. If you think about it, they went from one acquisition in a small market to being the second biggest distributor in the universe, literally on the planet in 5 years. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
When you really think about what's out there. So obviously our industry was put on a spotlight by that, or put on a big stage by that. But I know there's an entity down in the South, in the Sun Belt, that's kind of going down a parallel path to what you guys are doing, Kyle. But it's happening, right? So I think it's one of those things where listen to this podcast, think about it, ask the questions, and just be aware of the phenomenon that's out there, because it's the climate and you can't change it, right? You can only do what's best and navigate the waters that you're on.
And you guys were talking earlier, I was going to jump in. Exit strategies can be multiple different things, right? They can mean a liquidity event. They can mean certainly just making sure that the company continues to run. They can mean being part of something bigger. So when you're ready to exit, it's already done for you. You're there. And it's not one exit strategy to roll up or be rolled up. This can handle multiple different generational things, because we are in talks with folks who have kids in the business. Reality, how much can they pay you over the next 10 years? I mean, Rob, you were there, right? What would you have been able to pay back in those days as you were going? And then if you're doing all the work and you're looking up at your folks or your dad going, how much money am I paying you over the next 10 years, right? Yeah. At some point you get a little frustrated, but instead now you get purchased or acquired by a company. The liquidity event is there that not only can you take care of yourself, but probably, hopefully, if your company is big enough, your children, and your children get to stay on in their management positions and grow with the company. And now they just have to be half as good as you think they are. And they're going to grow into bigger roles with a much larger company. So, those of us that have lived it, the one thing we always used to wonder about is how did we deal with all this stress of doing everything in our company? Now we don't have to worry about that. Now we have the CFO, the HR department, the CEO, the COO. We had all the C's, right? The whole C-suite's covered. And we get to do what we're great at. instead of stressing over every single aspect of the business.
Well, there you go. Yeah, there you go. I mean, it's the climate we live in. So hopefully this conversation and your experience, Kyle, is going to help some of the listeners out there. And maybe it's going to, help them figure out what is best for their businesses to sustain and grow those moving forward. So I think that is a great conversation. Brent, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Kyle, can't thank you enough for sharing, just so candidly and all the way through, and so genuine too. I mean, you can feel it listening to you and gaining from it. And man, I just thank you for that. And guys, I think we definitely reached a smooth finish here and can get on to the next one.
One thing I do want to put a spotlight on and mention, and Rob, please, there's so many areas in the industry and seats, prestigious seats and hats that Kyle has sat in and worn. But could you go through just kind of some of the accomplishments and the areas that Kyle is actively involved in the industry?
Well, absolutely. And one of the things that Kyle's and my relationship started out because of our involvement with NESPA and our chapters. I mean, Kyle is past president of LIPSA, which is the Long Island Spa and Pool Association's chapter. He's also the current president of the Northeast Spa and Pool Association, and he sits on the board of directors for PHTA. Kyle is one of two fellows that is actually on this podcast, and sadly, I am not the other one.
Yeah, that's impressive. That is impressive.
So
I've heard a fellowship is almost impossible to be granted.
You know
I'm in
what's
the
even
SNAF
harder,
group.
Chris? You know what's even harder? Being the 2022 PHTA Builder of the Year. Just saying.
Oh, PHTA Builder of the Year for 2022. That's right. How can we leave that out? So, Kyle's worn a lot of hats and he's done a lot of great things giving back to the industry. He's very instrumental in during COVID when New York in particular had the shutdown where New York, you could not go to work as a pool guy in New York. And Kyle was one of the drivers, if not the driver, with political connections in getting that open for the pool companies.
Hey, thank you so much, Kyle.
Appreciate
Thanks,
you,
Kyle.
guys.
Another
Thank
great
you.
episode. Thank you.
Have a good one, boys.